Brantford-Brant.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. It's always a privilege and honor to speak in this chamber, but more importantly, to lend a voice to the fine residents of Brantford-Brant. And on a topic such as this, Madam Speaker, with next to no notice, it's even more important that I lend an appropriate voice, because I come at these debates when it comes to criminal justice issues and victim issues from a place of significant experience. And I know that several members have heard me to explain my background, but for those who haven't, it's important to remark that prior to becoming elected in September of 2021, Madam Speaker, I enjoyed a 30-year legal career. And in that 30 years, I saw both sides of the equation. I defended the worst of the worst for 12 years. I defended individuals charged with shoplifting, with mischief, with paintball and tagging and spray painting offenses, all the way up to and including murder. I decided that after 12 years that my reflection on my 12-year defense career did not give me a sense of satisfaction, because ultimately, when I cross-examined victims of crime from all walks of life, from young children all the way to senior citizens, it was heartbreaking to see how our criminal justice system works. It's extremely adversarial, and defense counsel have a job to do, and that job is to ensure that there is a fair trial. But reflecting on the fairness of the trial, sometimes you have to sacrifice your personal beliefs and your morals. So after 12 years, I came to the point, I was about to get married, I wanted to start a family, and I said, what type of husband, what type of father do I want to be when I'm taking these steps to ensure these serious, violent offenders are escaping justice, escaping responsibility? And although ultimately that is the task of a defense lawyer, to ensure not only fairness, but hopefully win the case, it certainly creates havoc with respect to the victim's sense of what type of system we have. And to my colleague, the member for Fundy Royal, he could not have said it better, that in my role as a parliamentarian, the theme that we hear over and over and over again is that this is definitely not a justice system, but merely a legal system. So when I joined the Crown's office, Madam Speaker, in 2004, every single day that I was a public servant for the province of Ontario, it left me with a gratifying feeling that not only was I contributing to the fairness aspect of our legal system, of our justice system, I was holding offenders accountable, but I was, in my small way, giving victims the voice that they felt that they had lost, of being either victimized, not being believed by police services, not being believed by legal professionals, not being believed by judges. I took it as my personal mantra to dispel as many of those myths as possible. Whether it was prosecuting, as I said, shoplifting, which has a societal impact, all the way to multiple murderers, and I've seen it all, Madam Speaker, in my 18 years of Crown experience. I was left with a goal to ensure that in my small way, I left my victims whole again. And while offenders who do get punished usually end up in jail depending on the nature of the crime, will serve their sentence, and will move on with their lives. Same cannot be said for victims of crime. Some victims of crime live with the trauma of this experience for the rest of their natural lives. So it was important for me as Crown Counsel for the province of Ontario to equip those victims who went through this horrific process, to give them the tools to put together their lives after this crime. So it begs the question, why did I choose to leave a very rewarding, satisfying career as a Crown attorney to enter these halls? Well, the answer was simple. I was sick and tired of seeing the escalation of crime from coast to coast to coast, but particularly in my small riding of Brantford-Brant. I remember, I'm born and raised in my riding, Madam Speaker, and I remember growing up all through high school, through my university days, through my law school days, and ultimately in my career as a lawyer and Crown attorney. It was a safe place to live. It was a safe place to raise a family. And literally in the last 10 years of my practice as a Crown, I was seeing a gradual increase in the prevalence of crime, but more so, a prevalence of serious violent crime. Early on in my Crown days, it would not be uncommon not to prosecute a homicide for several years. Fast forward to 2020 and 2021, where I ultimately took a leave of absence to pursue politics, we had 12 homicides on the books, with a small office of 6 Crown attorneys. It was overwhelming. And it wasn't just the homicides. We had the shootings, we had drug trafficking, we had fentanyl, we had all kinds of the nasty criminal activity that this House speaks about literally on a daily basis, that we read about online, that we read about in the papers. That's what was happening. And I felt that my effective voice as a Crown attorney could only go so far. I wanted to be an instrument of change. I wanted to correct the wrongs with respect to our legal system. And I must say, 2 minutes? Can you let me know, Madam Speaker, when I have 1 minute left? Thank you. I must say it was completely frustrating for me to arrive in this House and hear the government touting how serious they are about our justice system, how serious they are about holding offenders accountable, how serious they are with respect to victims' rights. But everything they do ultimately is the complete opposite. As my colleague has already indicated, C5 is a disaster. It is still a disaster. Taking the most significant, serious, violent offenses and opening up the possibility that they can serve it in the comfort of their own homes. I'm going to go further on conditional sentences. That's house arrest. These individuals are entitled to work. These individuals are entitled to spend some time in the community. These individuals are entitled to go shopping. That is not holding an offender accountable. So it brings me full circle as to why we are here. We are here because the Minister of Public Safety has lost the trust of Canadians, has lost the trust of this House, and on that basis, I'm asking that the motion be amended by deleting all the words after the word "that" and substituting the following: the 7th report of the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, presented on Monday, April the 17th of this year, be not now concurred in, but that it be recommended to the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights with instruction that it amend the same so as to recommend that the Minister of Public Safety immediately resign, given his total lack of consideration for victims of crime and his mishandling of the transfer to more cozy arrangements of one of the worst serial killers in Canadian history. And this unacceptable move has shocked the public and created new trauma for the families of the victims, and that the Minister of Public Safety's offices knew about this for 3 months prior to Paul Bernardo's transfer, and instead of halting it, the information was hidden from the families. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
It is a bit long. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, and to my colleague, thank you for your years of work on the issues of safety and improving safety throughout Canada. I can share with him the fact that when I came here 23 years ago, one of my issues was very much the issues of crime. Was the issues of crime and safety. I too lost a cousin who was an OPP officer in a terrible shooting. And the results to the individual who performed the shooting were, I felt, very insignificant. So I've talked a lot about these issues. I think they matter a lot to all of us as parliamentarians. But at the same time, as we move forward, there's always the issue of being responsible and having to be responsible in how we bring in laws and how we enforce them, and that we have to also make sure that we are considering everything, including the victims that are there. So I'd like to ask the honourable member, as we move forward, and I'm glad to see that he joined us because I thought I should stop talking until he came back, that many of us share concerns about how do we improve the safety, whether we're talking about with C-21 and guns and knives and all the rest of it. Basic safety is critically important, and I'd like to look at how we can work better together to improve the judicial system and our laws and orders together and find answers.
The honourable member for Brantford-Brant.
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 Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for that very important question. But to your point, how do we work together? It is incumbent upon me to stress that collaboration on these issues should never and ought to never be partisan. If we all come from a goal of protecting this community known as Canada from coast to coast to coast, we have to put aside our ideological differences, and we have to strive to not only talk about issues that are germane to the concerns of victims, but actually implementing it. It's listening to victims groups. It's not being dismissive of their concerns. The fact that so many victims right now do not see this as a justice system but a legal system should be an alarming call to my colleague and to members of this government. That narrative needs to change. And it changes by not only talking the good game, that you're serious about holding offenders accountable and you are concerned about victims' rights, but it's basically walking the walk. When you have your minister, who, in my opinion, has deliberately misled this court. Not this court, sorry, this House.
May I remind the honourable member that the honourable member speaks through the chair, please?
Through the chair. When I remark upon the minister's commentary, Madam Chair, through you, how he had this information available to him for 3 months and chose not to share those details not only with the House, but to Canadians, but more importantly, to the families of the victim is completely inexcusable. You talk, this government, Madam Chair.
Another chance for a question. L'honorable député de Berthier-Mascoulonger.
The honourable member for Berthier-Mascoulonger. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I closely listened to my colleague's speech. He has a rich experience, and we respect his experience in the justice system. He knows of what he speaks, of course. I don't have this level of expertise, but I was witness to a number of cases, court cases, where errors were made or people were poorly processed, or there were errors that led to people being freed. There is two sides of all discussion. There are two sides to all discussions, so sometimes mistakes are made. We're all humans. The point I would like to talk about is about resources. Could the colleague tell us about resources available? I believe that the Crown does not have enough resources to deal with the amount of cases, and so they can't study every file in depth. Are there enough resources that is given to the Crown? Or does the Crown require more resources? How can we improve the system for the Crown? Perhaps there's not enough money invested in our justice system federally and provincially.
Member for Brantford-Brant, 10 seconds, please.
Excellent question. Judicial resources are at an all-time low. We have federal vacancies that total almost 80. We have vacancies provincially. We do not have enough crowns. We do not have enough detention centers. We do not have enough money going to police services. It is a multifaceted approach that needs to be taken to deal with this crisis known as the criminal justice issue. It is the federal jurisdiction, it's provincial jurisdiction, it's municipal jurisdiction, all working together to fill these gaps. Thank you.